Let's now also bring in Tristen Naylor, author and Deputy Director, G7 and G20 Research Groups. He's joining us now from New Delhi, from the summit there. Appreciate you joining us, Tristen. Thank you so much for your time.
Nice to see you as always.
So talk to us about the big takeaways so far, Tristen. I mean, we know that there is a lot happening on the ground in terms of course, the global economy, but there are also multiple bilaterals taking place as we speak.
Absolutely, as is always the case at these summits, it is a busy couple of days. In terms of the big things that have happened, I think without question, one of the hallmark moments here was the welcoming of the African Union into the club as a full member in its own right. The African Union has been an invited guest for many years. They now join the table as a full substantive member of the G20. That is a big accomplishment for the club as a whole. But then on the sidelines, of course, there's tons going on. Last night, there was a very important bilateral between the American president, President Biden, and Prime Minister Modi. Of course, we're all waiting for Prime Minister Trudeau's meeting with Prime Minister Modi tomorrow. And in terms of what's being discussed on the sidelines, of course, the war in Ukraine is, while it's not officially on the summit agenda, it's very much at the forefront of most of the leaders' minds here this weekend.
So while, of course, there is this expansion of sorts where G20 is concerned, as you mentioned there, Tristen, but there is something that everybody has been talking about, the fact that heads of two big countries are actually missing from this G20. China, Xi Jinping there sending out a message, and Russia for, of course, obvious reasons. We of course, have representatives from both of them in this particular summit. But talk to us about what does that really say?
Well, certainly it seems that the Chinese president is sending a message that he doesn't need to be coming to these summits, preferring to attend summits where he's very much in control, something like the Shanghai Cooperation Agreement summits, things like the Belt and Road Initiative summits. From what I've seen, certainly over the past day and a half now, that's not affecting the rest of the membership. They're very happy to carry on with the work of this club, and in many ways not having what is not infrequently a dissenting voice around the table, not having that voice present, actually allows the club to get on with its work perhaps better than would otherwise be the case.
Is it more so about sending a message? Because we know that there are issues with border disputes between India and China. Is it about that, or is it really about sending a message to Western nations saying that there are other focuses, like you're mentioning, for example, BRICS as well, while China wants to develop those as another front to counter G20 or the G7?
Well, as is almost always the case in international diplomacy, can be more than one thing at once. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing here. I think it's about the fora in which China is the dominant actor, as you say, the BRICS included. And it's also about the particular bilateral tensions that exist between China and India, tensions which certainly are not decreasing in intensity.
There has, of course, been an issue of trust deficit in the past few years where the G20 is concerned amongst all the nations. How do you see members coming out of this particular summit?
Well, in terms of trust, one thing that we do already have is an agreement on a communique. It's only the first day of the summit, and yet the leaders have agreed to language. 24 hours ago, this looked like it wasn't going to be so certain of a possibility. So that tells us something. But that said, the content of that communique isn't exactly as, shall we say, substantive or ambitious as we'd like. What that says about trust, it's tough to say, but what it certainly tells us is that the leaders around the table don't have the confidence either in one another or in their own governments to really drive the global agenda forward in a substantive way.
All right, we'll have to leave it at that for a moment, but we appreciate you joining us from New Delhi. That's Tristen Naylor, author and Deputy Director, G7 G20 Research Groups. Thanks again, Tristen.